Welcome to the INFOWARS Nightly News. I'm David Knight. It's Thursday, November 13th, 2014, and here are our top stories.
Tonight, report: Obama could announce executive immigration action as early as next week. Then, a survivor of the USS Ronald Reagan speaks on his Fukushima experience and what ISIS trading in gold means for you. That's next on the INFOWARS Nightly News.
Well, whatever happened to the rule of law? Whatever happened to equal protection under the law? We see that next week we're going to have immigration amnesty granted by executive fiat by President Obama, but he's not the only one doing this. We're going to look at several cases of it, but let's first look at what Obama is going to do. A source from Fox News is reporting that Obama is going to announce a 10-point immigration plan via executive action as early as next week. They say that it's going to suspend deportations for millions of people. Now, the plan calls for expanding deferred action for illegal immigrants. Now, there's nothing really deferred about it because they're not planning on taking any action ever, but it's going to expand deferred action for children as well as extend it to their relatives who are here, the anchor baby issue. They also report that DHS is planning to promote a new naturalization process, giving a 50% discount on the first 10,000 applicants who come forward. That's right. Now, notice that they're not going to give that exemption, that discount, to people who have income levels above 200% of the poverty line. That's because in America, unlike every other country, unlike Mexico, unlike even Belize, we don't want people becoming citizens here to have a means of income or a means of support, have savings or income that they can rely on. We want to bring in the poorest of the people so that we can put them on the welfare rolls. That's called Cloward and Piven. That's the strategy that's behind this. But of course, it's also about rewarding those that he believes he can benefit from, those undocumented Democrats. Bring in about 5 million people. That should help them win the next election, of course. And they also report that they're going to extend technology jobs through an immigrant visa program that would offer another 500,000 immigrants a path to citizenship, including their spouses. That's right. We don't need to worry about providing jobs to Americans. We need to bring in engineers and technical positions from outside of the country. And then finally, there's a lot of people who are begging the president to go big. That's a quote from Juan Vargas, a Democrat from California. It looks like we no longer have to worry about a lame duck president. He's going to have a lot to do with executive orders. That lame duck issue was when we still had a legislature that wasn't a useless appendage. But it's not just the president, of course. We see privilege being extended by the Arkansas governor, who is going to pardon his son on drug charges. That's right, his son was arrested and charged with felony drug charges more than a decade ago. They then put him on supervised probation. They charged him with possession of a controlled substance with intent to deliver, but he got 3 years supervised probation. Now his daddy is going to give him a pardon. It's interesting to note that just this last summer, a signature petition effort to try to get medical marijuana on the ballot in Arkansas failed. So if you want marijuana for medical purposes, they'll throw you in jail. I don't see the governor granting pardons to people who have been put into jail for nonviolent use of medical marijuana, but if you're connected, you can get a pardon. Just like if you've got a political connection to Obama, you can get a pardon if you're here illegally. We also see in New York, we've got the cannibal cop who is now, looks like he's going to be sentenced to time served. They're going to change it over to a misdemeanor charge. This is someone, if you're not familiar with the case, a former New York City police officer whose bizarre online exchanges about kidnapping and eating women landed him behind bars and earned him tabloid infamy as the cannibal cop. Now, he faced a possible life term for kidnapping conspiracy. This is someone who essentially used his position as a police officer to look up information about women and then troll them and threaten them that he was going to essentially torture, kill them, and eat them. Now, if this was somebody doing this as part of an FBI scam where the FBI went to someone and cooked up some kind of a terrorist scam so they could look good and then turn them in, broke up the false flag that they had essentially started, those people would be looking at a very stiff jail sentence. But this guy basically says, well, I really wasn't going to do anything about it. Really? it's still a conspiracy. He was still conspiring to do it. He still got the information. He still followed them. He gets a free pass because he's connected. Just as we saw this story yesterday that Jakari Jackson covered on the nightly news last night, the Afghanistan opium harvest at record high as NATO withdraws. It has nothing to do with NATO withdrawing. It has everything to do with NATO being there. They're going to come after those who aren't their drug partners, but those who are, they're going to assist them. Remember that in Afghanistan, before we went there, they only had 10% of the world's supply. After we were there for a few years, 90%, and every year is a record crop. It has nothing to do with NATO leaving. Now, later in the program, we're going to be joined with Ted Anderson of Midas Resources, and we're going to talk to him about gold because, as you might remember, a few days ago, we had a clip surface from Alan Greenspan, former Federal Reserve chairman, talking to the Council on Foreign Relations about how important he thought gold was. Now, today we have the story from Kurt Nimmo, How to Demonize Gold, Make It the Preferred ISIS Method of Exchange. He points out the fiat money system hates gold, except in private, as we'll see. Banksters love the faith and fraud-based ability of paper and never tire of dissing currencies based on physical commodities such as gold or silver. Now we see that ISIS is saying that that's what they're going to base their currency on, not a paper currency. They're not going to get tied into the West banking system, but they're going to be independent of it with gold. Exactly what Alan Greenspan is saying. So we're going to have his comments analyzed by Ted Anderson of Midas Resources. We're also going to look at the movement. In about 17 days, the Swiss are going to be voting on whether or not they want to go back to having gold back the Swiss franc. And there's also some interesting developments in Oklahoma. So stay with us right after the break. We're going to have that interview as well as some more reports. We'll be right back.
Introducing the first proprietary oxygen-based intestinal cleanser, OxyPowder. Backed by FDA-approved phase 1, 2, and 3 clinical trials. All the toxins from the air, the food, the water, ultimately ends up in the gut or affects the gut. Take your health into your own hands and start cleansing your body today with OxyPowder. Secure your OxyPowder today at InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com.
The globalist social engineers are not just targeting us with propaganda. They are manipulating our genetics. We are being targeted at every level by estrogen mimickers that lower our testosterone and other hormones and natural compounds that the body needs. After consulting top doctors, nutritionists, pharmacists, and others, we have developed what I believe is the ultimate non-GMO organic super male vitality formula sourced from powerful organic herbs and then concentrated for maximum potency. Super Male Vitality was developed to activate your body's own natural processes instead of using synthetic chemicals. Super Male Vitality by InfoWars Life is so powerful that I only take half the recommended dose. For a limited time, we are offering 15% off Super Male Vitality at InfoWarsLife.com to introduce you to this powerful supplement. Visit InfoWarsLife.com today to secure your Super Male Vitality. InfoWarsLife.com.
Welcome back. Now, it's been 3.5 years since Fukushima, and of course, we're told there's nothing to worry about. Move along, there's nothing to see here. It's not going to affect anybody's health. Well, joining us today is Steve Simmons. He was a retired lieutenant. He served with the U.S. Navy for 17 years, and he and a lot of other soldiers who were in the area as that happened are living proof that there is something to be concerned about at Fukushima. Thank you so much for joining us today, Steve.
Thank you.
Let's talk first about what your mission was there. Now, you were on the USS Reagan, but there were a lot of other ships that were there. I think it's about 25 in total. Was that correct?
You know, I honestly don't know the accurate numbers of what ships were there in the area.
Now, what were you guys supposed to do as this nuclear reactor is having problems and suffering coolant issues and everything? What were you supposed to do there?
The Reagan's, actually everybody's responsibility as far as the Navy was concerned was solely humanitarian. The Reagan, we were already on a scheduled deployment, so we were further south getting ready to participate in an exercise when we got the word of the earthquake and tsunami on the 11th of March that damaged the Fukushima plant. And on the 12th of March, we arrived on station off the coast of Japan to start providing humanitarian assistance to all the displaced citizens of Japan.
Okay. So you were there primarily not to do something about the nuclear reactor.
No, not at
You were
all.
there to help people as a result of the storm and the earthquake actually that had happened that
Absolutely.
created this. Yeah. Okay. All right. So you're there deployed to help people in Japan, and yet nobody is advising the military about the problems that are going on at Fukushima. Is that correct?
I'm sure the information was getting out. I just don't think that it was accurate information. The location that we were operating in, at one point we had actually sat in a nuclear plume for over 5 hours, and we had to secure the ventilation. We had to secure the water because contaminants had got sucked up into the water system.
And what does that mean when you get the water when it gets sucked up into the water system? How does that affect the sailors that are on the ships?
Everything that happens on the carrier that involves water is straight seawater. I should rephrase. Not everything is straight seawater, but everything is seawater in the aspect of that's where it starts. Some of it gets filtered. The stuff that's going off to the water fountains, the soda machines, that kind of stuff is all filtered. And then you have the other things such as your plumbing, your toilets and stuff like that. That is straight seawater. The water that's used to wash aircraft, wash the flight deck, that's seawater. So if the contaminants are in the water, then you're going to be susceptible to ingestion of that.
Okay, all right. So you've got water that's being used that's drawn up out of the sea that's contaminated. You're also getting contamination from the air. And how long did this go on? How long were you there?
Now, the Reagan was on station for just about 30 days.
Wow, okay. All right, so when did you come back and when did you start to notice symptoms?
The Reagan finished up deployment in September of 2011.
About 6 months?
We were on a 7-month deployment. We left in February. So we arrived back in the States the beginning of September, and that's when I actually transferred from the ship. I transferred out to DC. I was starting a new job, working there in Arlington, and it was the latter part of November is when I started feeling symptoms. I wasn't sure what was going on. The first thing that happened, I was driving to work. Anybody who's familiar with the Arlington area, I was driving down Route 50 heading into work, and I had just passed through a stoplight, and the next thing I know, I'm driving my truck up on a curb. So I briefly blacked out. I wasn't sure what was going on. I started to feel, honestly, I thought it was kind of a flu, maybe a flu virus or stomach bugs or something going on. Figured a few days it would be gone. After I finally got to work, I called my wife and explained to her what happened. She called my doctor there out in Fairfax and scheduled me an appointment. They ran a bunch of labs, some minor abnormalities, but nothing that could lead them in any direction. So eventually they sent me off to the infectious disease clinic up at Walter Reed. And kind of the same thing there, bunch of labs, really nothing coming back that would give them an indication of what was going on.
Did you tell any of these people that you had been at Fukushima?
I did. In fact, it was by January, so this was November, end of November into December, and then by January, I was actually admitted for the first time into Walter Reed. I was having uncontrollable fevers, severe night sweats. I had dropped initially between 20 to 25 pounds.
Wow.
Some of that I managed to get back, but I still struggle with that today to keep it. And so during my first hospitalization, I told the intern about the deployment and about being on station and sitting in a nuclear plume for over 5 hours, and that maybe there was a connection. Up until that point, I had been healthy. I've had some orthopedic issues, but who wouldn't after a lifetime of sports? So I'd been healthy the summer before. I was in Hawaii. So summer of 2010, I was doing trail runs in Hawaii, hiking Diamond Head. The following day, hiking Stairway to Heaven, which is a strenuous hike in itself. And even during the deployment, I was doing P90X and Insanity workouts, and sometimes I would do a hybrid between the two workouts. So I wasn't